Just two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? And welcome, everybody. So glad to be with you on Just Two Conscious Guys Talking. Today, it's just one conscious, hopefully one conscious guy talking. So I wanted to take time. We've just did a whole full series of 20 men, 20 or more men, depending on how many episodes ultimately released, of men who really have found, this challenge of being a man during these times when things are a bit confusing around what role that we're here to play and who we really even are, within this grand awakening of life. What does it mean to be a man, especially when there's this whole idea of the patriarchy and the realities of it, and maybe the myths of it, of course, as well. There are myths within it. And the biggest thing for me in the show has been to look at what are the things that are driving this so-called patriarchy that has been, and how also, we'll talk about it as we go through this today and beyond. How's that patriarchy still in place in ways that are different than how people are perceiving? In other words, where's the patriarchy involved when it isn't men, but it's women that are continuing to push that energy forward in a toxic way as well? Those things need to be considered, because divine masculinity, divine femininity, and the full range of energies and emotions are there, and all of them are meant to be. All of them are meant to exist. It's not like we're trying to get rid of entirely all toxic masculinity. This is going to arise like anything else. These energies will arise, and the more you try to suppress them completely, they will come back stronger, because they're meant to exist. So what we're labeling as toxic masculinity, for example, unconscious masculinity, however you want to look at it, it has its place, it has its function. From our unenlightened mind, we say it's just bad. But from our enlightened mind, we could see there could be value in any way of being at any given moment in time, potentially, right? And then getting deeper into our true nature, the awakened self, where we let things be more simple, more heart-based, more flowing from the deeper presence, of course. Like, that's our direction with everything right now. I believe, like, what we're being called into is deeper awakening and deeper evolution as well of consciousness. I think a lot of times where, what I ran into in my path as a man is there's this idea of awakening as a human being and as a spiritual being, right? And then there's this awakening of many other things, including as a man. And what does that mean? Me being a man and taking the masks off, and being who I truly am, rather than some version of a man that I think I'm supposed to portray, or pulling back on my masculine energy because maybe I think it's too strong and people will judge me for it. And that does happen, even for myself. So especially for myself, sometimes depending on the situation. So, like, for example, recently I was into some discussions with a client, and this client said, we were actually negotiating something, and she's like, wow, your sharpness is really, like, she mentioned about my sharpness. And I guess you could put different labels. It could be fierce feminine, it could be masculine, but whatever, whatever you want to call it. But there is a sharpness that I would say denotes more that masculine energy in the conversation we're having. And it's an awakener, not everybody appreciates it or likes it all the time, right? Like the masculine is here to what? Is here to bring a strength, a certain sort of strength. The feminine, like if we just go to the two, feminine and masculine, all these concepts are just concepts. Ultimately, we're pointing to something. Like the feminine is more of this deep presence that's infinitely powerful all by itself without trying to do anything. It just automatically is, and it's infinitely creative and can manifest everything and anything, including the more of the power of that masculine as well. So, but the masculine is there to harness, to focus, to protect, and to bring structure, to things in life, so that we can experience this physical reality as being, held and moved forward in a way that feels beneficial for all when utilized best. So that's one of my best ways of putting the masculine in just a short little tidbit. So today I didn't want to just talk about what is, masculinity and all that. So we can check that box off. We've talked a bit about that again. What's healthy masculinity? What's toxic masculinity? The toxic would be just stressed out, always coming from your wounds to try to achieve more, and it's never enough. And that could be masculine, feminine, whatever, but like driving and achieving, and you have to hit all your goals. Like that's typically what we call toxic masculinity. And, everything's about me and, conquering conquests and aggrandizing, who I am. Whereas, divine masculinity is just to fully check this box off, and healthy masculinity is just there to serve and protect that essence of life, really the divine feminine, in my opinion. And again, it lies within all of us, men and women. All right, so what did I learn though about our guys, on the interviews? Let's recap a little bit. I didn't listen back to all the interviews. I did listen back to some of them as they are being released. But what have I learned, and what have you learned? Like, have you been watching this show? What have you learned? I'd love to hear in the show notes. There's many things I've learned, but I've distilled down about, 5-ish different things that I've learned. Some of them are like that new ideas, but like I continue to witness, continue to presence and see that there's a real need to address many of these things, or all of them, for conscious men, especially. If men are unconscious and aren't ready to be conscious, then there may not be much we can do all the time other than to set limits and boundaries and all that sort of stuff. So what I found out about the conscious guys, these conscious male leaders, is on their path, they talked about this series, we focused on their childhood and what that was like, just in general. Like, what were your issues? What were the concepts of being a man that you ran into? And a lot of it was, I thought I had to be so strong, invincible or whatever, and have to be the toughest. I have to be the strongest. I have to not show my emotions. All these different ideas, you hear through listening to all the shows, all the different things. And so on the flip side of like, I have to be this strong thing, what it masks is the sense of vulnerability that men, do feel on a perpetual basis for the most part, most men. Now some men may be so detached to that aspect of themselves, they may not even believe it exists, but it exists. And there's a sense of vulnerability that is really clear and strong within men. And most men have learned, like, okay, put that sucker away, the inner child and all that. And the most beautiful men I know anyway have a mix of, like, they have the masculine strong energy, but also have that inner child, just using terms, not nailing anything down here, feminine energy. They brought that on. Like Dane Stevens comes to mind. Like, he's done this deeper trauma work around many things, including, I'm sure we could say, as being a man. And he talked about that. And how doing this deeper work within ourselves allows us to get it connected again with those vulnerable parts of ourselves as we were kids, shut down. Don't you cry, I'll give you something to cry about, things like that, that many of us men heard, growing up. And probably, again, on that one, maybe women too. So for sure, but yeah, don't cry, don't be vulnerable. So how that plays out is it informs kind of a lot of the other things, like, okay, then I need to suppress that. Maybe you end up with substance abuse issues, which are, I believe, more prevalent in men from what I've seen. Suicide rates, I know for sure, are higher, much higher in men, because they can't share their vulnerability and emotions. So it's all suppressed, it's all shut down, or just suppressed, not fully functioning. I would say, for probably the majority of the guys that came on, like, all of us still have levels and layers of that, if not all of us. So we still have that thing of don't be too vulnerable. Don't be too vulnerable. That idea is still around. So I think for men and women, this is a ongoing thing. Men are just more trained, like, don't be vulnerable. Some women are also brought up in those environments not to be vulnerable, but they're more encouraged to share, and it's more acceptable to show all kinds of emotion and sadness and whatnot. Yes, they could be judged for sure, but not to the level of in the same way, at least, as men. So covering up this vulnerability. So what can we do about it right now? Well, if you're a man listening, again, equal half women, half men listen to this podcast. So if you're a man, listen, let's practice being vulnerable. The same person I was talking about is sharp with, I was also very vulnerable with that person. And the more vulnerable I was with them, the better our negotiation went. Like, the more I said, hey, I'm actually really afraid of this or that, to a client. I mean, like, I actually told them, like, some things that I was afraid of, and what we were talking about doing together. So I was like, I'm really afraid of the, and I was just totally open. So the more we can do that, the more effective we can be in that. It builds connection, a depth of connection in our relationships, and allows us to feel safe, and being vulnerable, because we think we're going to get crushed for being vulnerable, but mostly in today's society, you're more celebrated than crushed by being vulnerable. Again, there's always scenarios. You have to read your situation, right? It's not safe to be vulnerable everywhere all the time, but increasingly we can, and the more we can be the example of that, to be willing to be vulnerable and to show our emotions, show our tears. I know myself, sometimes I tell myself, don't show any tears here. You don't want to show that as a man or whatever. Even myself has done it, and very emotional, can be very emotional. So that's one thing. And women can you want the strength of a man. I believe most of the women, especially listening to this podcast, want the vulnerability even more, right? So all you can do is just provide that safe space. Don't say you want someone to be very vulnerable, and then when you have a man around you who's very emotional, like maybe crying, don't have a judgment in your head. Well, man, what kind of man is this? Like, he's a mess, he's so emotional. Clear that within you. You want to see the end of the patriarchy? Start honoring men's vulnerability and their emotions. Don't keep saying you want it, all this stuff, and then act otherwise, because I think that happens. Even subtle judgment. Oh, well, yeah, you're so emotional, and whatever, like, things that we can do to men to make them feel bad about being that way, and keep feeding the stereotypes. So stop feeding the stereotype. Okay, number two, which it relates completely to number one, but it's that I noticed that along that whole thing with the vulnerability, men are very guarded in sharing even the stories of being hurt or vulnerable in the past. Like, they're very guarded about it. So even getting men to talk about what's bothering them, even not even deep vulnerability, can be a real issue. And I even saw it in the interviews with the guys. Sometimes it was like, so let's talk about when you were a kid. And then sometimes they wouldn't directly fully answer the question. They would talk about, yeah, well, it's tough and this and that. And they'd be onto their talking points about men in general and what happens with men or whatever, it varied. But so I noticed it's not a judgment, it was an observation I made. I know I am one to do likewise at times. I don't just go deep dive into all the emotions in every scenario either as a man. And I'm not saying we all need to be crying all day and share emotions all day, but there's definitely, I've interviewed and I've served women for so many years. Women do not have the level of guardedness that men do around sharing around their stories of trauma, abuse, etc., and their emotions. It's not close. It's not close. So there again, it's a suppression of the be willing to even begin to really even discuss it. There's more of a denial. There's more of, yeah, it totally happened, but we don't need to talk about it because men don't talk about those things. So, so this guardedness and also the desire to continue to, stay in control and to some degree, and because they may unravel and be so unguarded that they could be attacked. Like there's this vigilance that men have, and we talked about the guardedness of protecting ourselves, but also others. Like we've got to guard our house, we've got to guard our environment for our family, like even people that haven't been police officers, etc., but just men in general. Like this came up in some of the conversations that I think about it. Like if someone's not home at night, one of the girls in the family, or even if I had boys, it'd be similar probably. I still think about it. Like, are they okay? Are they going to get home? What's happening? Like, I'm not consciously thinking about it all the time, but it's in my consciousness. It's in my awareness. So we need to stay on top of it. We need to stay in control. We make sure everyone's safe. So that's kind of like a number two. Number three, they want to prove they are strong, that they're strong and that they matter, that there's one of the things with men is within the male collective psyche is show no weaknesses, be invincible, be the best at whatever you do, but particularly be strong as possible. So achieve those goals no matter what. It doesn't matter if you work night and day and you have no self-care or no pleasure or whatever, it doesn't matter. Achieve, be a man, prove you're strong. Like I'm going to show people how strong I am one way or another. I'm going to prove that I'm stronger than the other guy is, that I'm more capable, that all those things go on for men. And again, to the point where men will work ridiculous amounts of hours, they tend to work more dangerous jobs. They also, get into fights with other men. I mean, those things happen. They shoot people. They tend to be the mass shooters, with mental health problems, which I'll get into. We're definitely going to be addressing that on this show. It's not that, the gun per capita has not gone up since the 1950s, guys. I mean, so this idea it's about the guns is not true. It's about the mental health. It's about, you've got to be so strong as a man. But now the flip side's coming up that some of these guys feel they don't fit in because they don't truly feel strong. But then they try to demonstrate it by doing something insane, like shooting people. Like in part, there's a psychology. There's something about that. See how powerful I was? I killed all those people. That's all part of what's going on with men. I have to show up. I have dominion. I have dominion over my environment. So what can we do around that? I think it's mental, partly it's mental health, especially with the violence stuff. So I've got a whole series coming up on that here in the future, here on this show, addressing those particular issues of, depression, anxiety, whatever, all the different mental health issues men have, addictions. So, but yeah, just realizing, like, seeing men as strong and capable, again, emotionally, and seeing men in new ways being strong. Like how strong are you at nurturing, like focusing more on that, like as a nurturer, like how can we cultivate and embrace men more as nurturers? How can we help men, realize that that is a deep value, and like with so many situations where women are the mothers and are single parents, and women who've gotten men and women who've gotten divorced, men being so judged, so castigated that they're not effectively able to show up as strong nurturers and in a deeper strength. Is that possible? Is there a way you're judging and not forgiving men for not showing up in the past, energetically, emotionally as nurturers, and then they're just trying to be strong in another way then, and they don't get it, right? So how can we help men with that? How can us men, be vulnerable enough to realize, okay, like what's being asked of me, and to follow through on that? Because I do think we're meant to, men often historically have been debaters and argue and want to be smart. I'm going to be smarter than everybody else. I'm going to prove that I'm smarter and stronger than everybody else. What if you let that go? What if it was possible you're not so smart? Maybe you're not the smartest. Maybe that's okay. But what, when you let that go, then what emerges? What new gift does that give you? More peace, more love and connection with others, supporting others, rather than seeing it as like, I got to run the other guy down, right? That kind of vibe. Like conscious guys, not as much of an issue, but again, we want to even look at the subtle level and then help pull other men up. Number 4, one of the things that struck me is I'll just make a comment on this one, is that men want to do the right thing. They do want to do the right thing. They want to serve and protect, and it's so hardwired, and they could see it in their energy, as I was being vigilant of different things, and they want to protect, they want to serve humanity, especially these conscious leaders. But I think it's in every man's ability to be that man, to be one that wants to serve and protect life, the life essence for men and women. Probably more women and children's usual, right? It's just our thing, but overall. And if we can, instead of being like, no, women are, women and even children, they can make their own choices, they're independent, they're strong, they're smart enough, and all this stuff, like, I don't know, just what I'm trying to say is let men, support, let men lead, allow men to be strong in helping to serve and protect. Let it be okay. Because again, women have it too, but again, it's just they have it in their own way, right? I'm not here to talk about the women as much, but men want to do that. That's why why there's more men in the military, more men in the police force to serve and protect, they say, for the police force, right? That's what men want to do. They want to serve and they want to protect. Allow, just, humor the man, even if you think you're so strong, like on a physical level, men want to protect and serve, but also emotionally, they want to protect and serve those they care about, right? They want to make sure that other people aren't abused or all that sort of thing. Cultivate that, encourage that. Men, don't try to get rid of that. Like, let's not protect and serve. Women are strong too, children are strong. Let's just let them be strong or whatever. And let's take a back seat. Let's not serve and protect as much. No, go full force with your impulse to serve and protect, being it while maintaining presence and consciousness at the same time. So we want to serve that makes for men to be healthier, stronger psychologically, because it's in their DNA. It is in their DNA. I could say that for sure. Okay, so the next thing is, and I could give you lots of scientific evidence, and it's over all our ancestors. It's all true, right? I could go on and on, but we're going to move on for now. The other thing I really think is true for most men overall, and then especially these conscious leaders that are men, they want to learn that they are open, they want to open more, they want to learn more, they want to be, quote unquote, better men. They want to be that. And again, if we can look at the lens of men as they actually want what, let's say, women are saying that they want from men, if you will begin to see men that way, women, then you're going to start to see more of it. I believe you do want to learn. I believe you are open to expanding into the divine feminine, and therefore being more awake and be able to bring your masculine in a way that really serves. So you have that mindset, then you start to create it, right? Women, men, realize that we're never done, guys. We're never done evolving. It's okay. We're whole already, but as we are willing to learn and open and evolve more is always available, just like it is for women, as it is for everybody else. So, or whatever you identify as, is just realize it never ends. You're already whole and perfect. No matter how great or how down you are in your life, you're already whole and perfect, guys. You are. At your core, you really are. And maybe you're just dealing with a rough time right now. Just be open to, there's something you need to understand about yourself. There's something you need to open to. There's something you need to learn. And once you learn that thing, whatever it is, whether it's that you're already loved, or or that your wife just wants you to say some nice things to her every once in a while, or whatever it is. Like, I'm not saying the standards should be that low all the time. I'm just saying, like, yeah, like it may not be as big of a thing as you think. Like, men tend to think, right? They say this with relationships with men and women. Men are like, I did a big thing for my partner or my wife or whatever. That should be good. I did that big thing. I provided that house or car, or I did a big gesture or whatever. Okay. But we all know, right? I think anybody listening here knows this truth. Women are constantly looking for the touches, constantly. Like, they constantly want that. They're constantly looking for that. The feminine, I don't know if it's a feminine energy, but women are always looking for that. I'm not going to say definitively. I think we all want it to a degree, for sure. But men tend to be more like, we do a big thing, then we're good for a while, and then you better keep doing big things. So we tend to be a little bit more along those lines. Whereas women are like, let's keep at it. No, keep it coming. Oh, every little thing is huge. Like, oh, what's it? Oh, you're so beautiful, or whatever. Or not even just that, but like, just acknowledging people in our lives constantly. You're really awesome. I really love you. I really just constantly, the constant touches we can bring. So realizing every moment is opportunity to open and just be present and to share great energy in the world, guys, and to continue to realize, what, I don't know anything. We all should be of that kind of mentality at a foundational level, while being confident about what you seem to know, right? But we don't know anything absolutely, guys. Come on. What do you know absolutely? If I ask you if you absolutely know anything, sure, you have to say no. You don't really know with almost anything. And even the things you say absolutely, there's scenarios where you may not know, right? If that's completely true. And I'm not going to get into the examples today, but anyway, so those are 5 things. So one was around the vulnerability, you can't cry and all that, and we need to continue to work on, working through that. The guardedness, staying in control, don't show any weakness, sort of related to number 1. Prove you're strong, the best, the smartest, the fastest, whatever. Hey, I know what that's like to have that impulse. It's kind of fun, but it's also can be a poison. It can keep us in a place that's not as loving and compassionate towards ourselves and others as we could be. We want to do what's right. We do want to do the right thing. We do want to serve and protect, for all of us to, encourage that within men, and to get that basic foundational primal aspect of a man is there in the vast majority of men, if not all men. And we want to keep nurturing that. We want to start nurturing it much more because that makes healthy men, in my opinion. So number 5 is everybody realize it's okay, that wherever men are right now, individually, collectively, love your man. Guys, love yourselves. Be open to learning and expanding and growing. Realize you're already whole, but that you're continuing to awaken and to learn more and be curious. Just be constantly curious to learn more, humbly and confidently, but with some humbleness. Like, I don't know, like, let me learn, let me be present to this, whatever's coming up in a relationship or something going on in the world or whatever, with your kids or whatever it may be, any relationship or such scenario, like a work scenario or a business scenario, to realize, okay, I don't know the answer. It's okay that I don't know the answer. Let me maybe get a little more patient and be willing to learn. Okay, so those are the things I just want to let you guys know as I wrap this up now. I'm going to continue with episodes. I'm going to be sharing some things myself. I'll have other guests on, coming forward, coming off this series. And then we'll do another series sometime. The target is early 2024. I'm going to be interviewing men around mental health issues. Some of them will be experts, I'm sure, as well, in helping to clear some mental health issues, and just guys that have had mental health issues and what they did to move through those mental health issues and getting into some of the specifics of those issues. So how can we help men with mental health issues? Because that's what's creating all the addictions, the suicides, the men dropping out of society, not being as engaged in relationships, etc. Withdrawing. Withdrawing is a big one with men. They just withdraw, they just retreat into their vices or even, their hobbies, but to exclusion of others, being fully present for other things because they're just trying to make it. They're just trying to hang on and, or thrive more. So we're going to talk about all that in our next series. In the meantime, we'll keep showing up here with consistency, but not as intensely as we have so far. Then we've got another series coming up into 2024, guys and girls. Everyone listening in. All right. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast and you've enjoyed all these different episodes with men and around what are the male stereotypes that you ran into? How did you overcome them? It's one of the foundational things we talked about. Please go back, listen to the episodes of these first 20 or so episodes we had and enjoy. Okay. All right. So I'm so grateful for you tuning in and look forward to sharing more with you. Till the next time. Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.